Hello, class. This is your professor, Dr. Brian Lippincott, and I'm the author of Analytical Psychology and Family Systems, Neo-Jungian Practice to Help Families Find Flow. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the flow state and adventure sports and give you just a little bit of overview of the flow state today. And then we're going to go on as time goes on and talk about my actual theory, which is family flow, which is integrating Jungian-based treatment, analytical psychology, family system, and flow science. Okay, so now I'm going to share my screen and give you a little lecture about the flow state. Okay, let's go play. Okay, so we're going to start talking a little bit here about flow state and um, peak experiences, which goes back to Maslow. But the actual flow, a lot of the research first came in flow state, which we'll go into depth. But I want to give you some of the first research. And the way it came out, the way it was kind of discovered, is maybe about 15, 20 years ago, um, people started really doing adventure sports like jumping off of mountains and skiing really fast on big things and diving under the ocean and doing all these adventure things. And they noticed that it kicked them into a kind of an altered state of consciousness, or a state of consciousness that they writing a book or things like that, writing your dissertation, you get into that flow state, and it doesn't have to be an adventure sport, but that's where it first came from. Um, so, what are adventure sports? Defined as those athletic pursuits involving uncontrolled natural environments, largely non-motorized propulsion, and threat of serious severe consequences. Uh, Prompt an unusually high incidence of flow state experiences, and they elicit the core features of Csikszentmihalyi's flow criteria more frequently and more reliably than other disciplines, such as conventional sport or music. Those can also do that. You can also get into the zone flow by doing that. Three factors explain the high flow of adventure sports are exposure to powerful wild surroundings. That's a key flow trigger, as being in nature, and you can't control it. So it's like I swim in a pool, but if you've ever done open water swimming, it's a whole different environment because the environment's always shifting. A high degree of physical engagement. You have to be really physically engaged and mental focus, and serious to fatal consequences. While these factors emerge in literature, uh, uh, in adventure sports, their insights are transferable to other domains such as education, healthcare, business, psychology, all those things. They can serve as a helpful guide for designing experiences and programs. And I have found this to be true. One of the things that I've done a lot of is take psychotic youth, out into the wilderness and take them surfing, or take them, I worked in Monterey County for like 20 years. And one of the benefits of Monterey County is they have beautiful things like Big Sur and beaches, and it's amazing. We had so many kids from East Salinas that were 17, 18 years old and had never seen a sunset at the beach. And I remember thinking, when Lily, my granddaughter, was 13, I remember thinking when she was about one, wow, she's already been like 100 times to the beach. But a lot of poor kids, or the kids that we were working with, had not done that. And just taking them to watch a sunset can be a flow experience if you haven't. So these are the three things that you have to have: deep embodiment, neuro-kinesthetic programming, hedonic engineering, and somatic triggers. Autotelic drive. Autotelic drive is doing things that you really, really enjoy. Auto, self, telic, end. So they're an end in themselves. And I probably already told you, maybe it was this class or another class, but my master's thesis at JFK a long, long time ago was on Zen meditators and self-actualization. And part of it was comparing the Zen meditator group and the self-actualized group um, on this test, the personal orientation inventory, which was invented by Maslow and Schoenstrom. But anyway, it was a measure of self-actualization. And one of the questions that I asked the participants was, do you meditate to improve your health or to relieve stress or help you sleep? Or do you meditate just because you like to do it in itself? And those people that said, I meditate just because I like to do it, and almost anything, like I'm teaching this class because I love to teach this. So it's easy. It's autotelic. I don't have to force myself to want to do it. I look forward to this. Okay, and so by doing things that you really, really enjoy, and you're doing it just as a thing in itself, not to get paid, or that's why you never want to pay a kid or anybody to hit home runs or to score touchdowns or read or things that can be really enjoyable learning, because those are enjoyable in themselves. And if you start to pay people behaviorally for things, then that becomes the important thing. That's why I try to get my classes to not focus on grades. Okay, the other part of it is high consequence, peak arousal, immediate feedback. That's one reason why video games, although they can be really time wasters, which we'll talk about the accuracy of flow later on, and asymmetrical warfare, because all these techniques of flow are been taught to the Navy SEALs, and the military was part of the group that really utilizes some of this and some of their work. And existential impact, high consequences into your life and to how you feel about life. And then a rich environment, like radical novelty, natural sublime, like awe, ego, a super egoic, not ego, not your ego, but transcending the ego, and distantiation, which is kind of like dissociation, and you kind of get so focused that you get into something. Okay, radical novelty. Unlike the controlled environments of traditional sports, I'm going to skip through this, but I'll post this. The Alaskan snowpack morphs from moment to moment. The swells breaking on Teahupo or Peak and launch to their own rhythms. The result, constant stimulation and never the same river twice. So a rich environment. A stale environment is the opposite of that. Natural sublime, from the Old Testament prophets to the 19th century romantics like Emerson, Thoreau, and Muir, seekers have always retreated to God's country for inspiration and perspective. The vastness and the power of snow-capped mountains, on and on, gets you hooked into something greater than yourself. Super-Egoic Distantiation, complicated term for a simple concept. With the growing exception of Red Bull media and their imitators, the majority of great moments in adventure sports occur in solitude or in the company of a core, friends, and accomplices. No jumbotrons, no Twitter, and those kind of things really are flow breakers. I mean, back in the day, Sigmund Freud outlined 3 components to the human psyche. The id, our, as you know, the primal instincts. The ego, our sense of self, and the superego, the collective voice of society. Getting far enough from the maddening crowd to silence the superego has always been a prime drive of the adventurer and the reward. So having the super, don't do that, it's crazy, like that kind of thing, as part of getting into this state. Let's see, okay. You can look at that in a moment. We're going to keep going. Deep embodiment, neuro-kinesthetic programming, because adventure sports require full bodily engagement and dynamic movements that promote a degree of vestibular body balance. And so one of the things when they train kids on flow is they put them in this, they do a lot of OT type of things to train kids that have trouble focusing to get into flow. And one of the things I'm doing like this, you can't probably see me, but they spin around on these things that they put you in this big contraption that your legs and your arms are held, kind of like we talked about the adversary and the guy that was suspended in class 1. But they kind of do like that, and they spin you around, and that polyaxial rotation hones the athlete's embodied cognition, and it also can create this part of this flow state by the polyvagal stimulation. Deep embodiment. Hedonic engineering. It sounds awful, but this is, with its outlaw bohemian culture, like the Dharma Bums or Jack Kerouac, adventure athletes remain the masters of the art of fine-tuning their buzzes. Some of these efforts can be chalked up to simple, youthful partying, and others, like the infamous hippie speedball, a cocktail of espresso and bong hits, should be seen for what they are: precisely calibrated combinations of stimulants and euphorants that create an alert physical self, hyper-attuned to sensory motor inputs, and free of the chattering distraction of the conscious self. Now, one of the things that we'll talk about in a few minutes is the dangers of flow. Like, one of the and this is research on this, but tagging, or when you go and spray paint on a wall in the middle of the night, is almost guaranteed to get a youth into flow. And one of the things that I did maybe 30 years ago in my private practice is through the county probation, anybody arrested in Salinas and Hollister, San Benito County, and in Monterey County that was tagged, got sent to a group that I did. And I got some of the older youth to talk about that had gotten out of tagging to be like kind of co-members of this group of taggers. And it really does, it sets a high for the youth. And that can be a real problem with flow and young people, as they can get into high by doing these high risk behaviors. And it's part of how gangs initiate people, because it feels really, really good. But it can be very, very dangerous. So there are dangers to that it can become addictive. And in all these adventure sports, that's one thing to talk about. It's like, if you get into this, you'll meet people who, everybody will tell you the stories of friends who have died doing some of these things. Somatic triggers in autotelic drive. Only a surfer knows the feeling. There are no friends on powder days. Both of those bumper stickers, truisms, highlight the simple fact that once you experience a deep flow state, getting barreled in the overhead wave or floating down a mountain on a bottomless powder day, you possess a full, potent felt sense, a flashing beacon of the map of your lived experience. Okay. Compared to the ruthless self-denial and delayed gratification typical in the 10,000 hours to mastery camp, the instant and overwhelming gratification of the flow state flips the Protestant work ethics on its head. If you feel that good, do it and keep doing it. And by the time you've locked even 100 hours of flow, you'll have passed 10,000 hours of practice anyway. And so it's a thing that people love to do. So they have a tendency to get their 10,000 hours. Peak arousal is our survival instincts kick in, norepinephrine, and they've tracked all the, this in the flow state, dopamine, norepinephrine, amygdalide, which is the cannabis-related neurotransmitter, and several other ones, all have to be engaged at the same time. High consequence, so you get immediate feedback. An example would be surgeons, for example, are the only class of physician that actually improve the longer they're out of medical school. Most doctors, their skills go down as they get out of medical school, but surgeons improve because if somebody dies if they mess up. Okay. High consequences, existential and archetypal impact. For most of human history, heroes traded their lives for immortal greatness on the battlefield. There's a famous code of Achilles that, you're going to be gone, but I'm going to live forever, even though I died. The last century and a half has seen an unprecedented shift from the ancient mono warrior ethos towards the mono mouse realities of tech buffered warfare. Today, we are left with very few venues to observe the best truly putting it all on the line and reaffirming their values. Adventure athletes have taken the armor, the weaponry, and the other ethos of the warrior tradition and refashioned it. And so they have that growth kind of mindset there. Okay, so let's see. Let me stop sharing there. Any comments on that or anything like that? That's just the beginning.
Okay, let me stop sharing. Thank you. And we will go on and talk about this in further lectures, but I wanted to give you a little bit of overview of where flow comes from, what it is, how it's triggered a little bit, and later on we'll talk about the flow challenge um, um, sweet spot, the Goldilocks zone, where you have to be challenged enough. But if you're too challenged, then you'll get too much anxiety. But if your skills, if you're not pushed enough, you want to be in the top 5% of your skill level in order to get into that sweet spot, which we will discuss in the next session. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm glad you all came to this class. Bye bye.